today we are joined by Areesha Zubair, who's a senior associate in our family law group here at Mills and Mills. And Areesha, you recently wrote an article about prenups or prenuptial agreements, taking inspiration from the recent celebrity engagement of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and sort of hypothesizing what their potential agreement may look like. So tell us, for those watching, what is a prenup or prenuptial agreement?
Right. So a prenuptial agreement is a marriage contract. Before two parties decide to get married, they can agree and enter into a legally binding contract that will set out the terms in case of a unfortunate demise of the relationship. So at the time of separation, and that contract will automatically become a separation agreement at the time of the separation. So in short, a marriage contract is basically trying to limit the kind of arguments you'll have at the end of a separation as to who gets what in terms of property, or assets, or the painting, or the couch, right? Like this is all spelled out in your marriage contract.
And so is a marriage contract just limited to assets, or can it go beyond that about who gets to spend time with the kids or things like that?
So that's a really good question. If you don't have kids yet, you cannot enter into a marriage contract that provides for a parenting plan for those kids. And if you do already have kids, for example, if you're bringing kids into the marriage, you still can't quite. You could try to have a parenting proposal in the agreement, but it's not really enforceable as such at the time of separation, because the idea is that children grow, their needs grow, their best interests are going to change over time. And so you can't pre-plan and pre-decide that you're going to have, for example, joint custody of the kids 7 years down the road or 10 years down the road. That's something that should be decided at the time of separation, if that happens.
And what about in cases where, and this is quite common in Toronto in particular, where all of your assets may not necessarily be in Canada, right? You might have bank accounts, property elsewhere in the world. Do those assets get included in the marriage contract? And if that's the case, how do you go about enforcing that?
Right. So properties that are not within the jurisdiction are still the court can still extend its jurisdiction over that property now in a different way. Obviously, it's not that you're exercising control or exercising power over the property itself. I'm trying to not use legal terms right now. Okay, but you can still make an order with respect to that property. And in fact, when you separate in this jurisdiction, you're separating your worldwide assets, not just your assets within Canada. So the order can extend and include, in the calculation of the division of property and equalization, for example, can include and will include your worldwide assets. But then, obviously, to enforce those orders, you'll still have to go back to the jurisdiction. For example, if there's an order for a sale of an extra jurisdictional property, you'll have to go to that jurisdiction and get that court in that jurisdiction to enforce that order for sale.
And if somebody's watching this and wondering if they need a marriage contract, I suppose two questions. First is, should they seek a lawyer's advice on that? And secondly, is that something that you or our colleagues here at Mills and Mills who do practice family law can assist with?
Right. So if you are thinking of a marriage contract, I do highly recommend that you get legal advice and legal counsel. And one of the reasons for that is because one of the grounds on which a marriage contract may be not enforced by the courts, or be set aside, is because someone could argue a party to the agreement could argue that they were under undue influence or pressure to sign the agreement. And so by having legal counsel by your side, you're kind of and on both sides of the equation, you're trying to limit that argument that there was undue pressure or influence over the parties signing the contract. And yes, we can definitely assist at Mills and Mills with this.
Well, thanks, Areesha. It's a very interesting topic, and thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.